Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I am super excited about this one. My name is Leah Lawrence, and I am the Business Development Associate here at Superior Clinical Research. And I am really glad that you guys are tuning in. For those of you who are new to our page and a refresher for the OGs, Superior Clinical Research is a community focused clinical research site dedicated to advancing medical breakthroughs through inclusive, patient-centered trials. And we partner with pharmaceutical companies and CROs and other sponsors to bring high-quality studies to real people. And we believe that diversity and access and education are the key to the future of research. We are not just about data, we are about people, our participants, our superior family, okay? Every trial that we run starts with building trust, empowering participants, and creating a real world impact. And speaking of impact, I am beyond honored to be joined today by someone whose story really, truly did change the game, Mr. Mel Mann. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my God, of course, of course, of course. I was pinching myself the whole time. I could not wait to see you, to have you speak here with us. Side story. I saw and first heard Mr. Mann speak at a conference I went to, SCRS, and like his story just blew me away. And then I kept hearing about him, and then I heard other survivor stories, and they would mention him and things of that nature. And then when I finally got to speak with him in person, and I caught him in the hall at another conference, I was like, please, can you be on the channel? Please, can you be on the channel? And he was so gracious and so kind. And he said, of course. And it was just a match made in heaven, as I can say. It's my dream guest. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is going to be a very powerful, heartfelt, and inspiration conversation, I believe. And you guys watching will definitely want to stay until the end for our live Q&A session. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, Mr. Mel, let's dive in. You have been described in so many ways when I was doing my research on you as a veteran, a survivor, an advocate, and a hero. But today, I just kind of want to start off a little simple. Who is Mr. Mel Mann? Tell us who you are.
Okay, so I am Mel Mann, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a 30-year leukemia survivor, and it's CML, it's chronic myeloid leukemia. So, and I was diagnosed in January 1995, and I am married to my wife Cecilia, and I have been married for 40 years.
Woo-hoo.
And I have a daughter, and she's a physician. She lives in Atlanta.
Okay. Love Atlanta. Love Atlanta. That's where my alma mater is. That's where I am. CAU.
The ATL, yes.
ATL. Good old ATL.
Yes.
We have a few comments in the chat. Miss Sharon Harrell says, I'm excited as well. Thank you guys so much.
Really?
And Maria Ladd said, such an inspiring conversation for those of us who work toward research success, but don't often get to experience it. So, Mr. Mel, can you take us back to your diagnosis? What was it like at the time, and how did you process the news?
Okay, so leading up to the diagnosis, because I was a major in the Army at the time, and I was living in Detroit, Michigan, stationed up there, and working in research and development for weapon systems. And I had this pain in my back, and I had fatigue, and the pain was actually running down my leg. So it was very hard to perform my work. So I went to the doctor, and she did all these tests. From times I would be in traction, taking pills, physical therapy, chiropractor. Eventually, I ended up taking an MRI, and from that, they could see that my marrow was not the normal marrow of someone who's 37 years old. And from that, they took a simple blood test, and they were able to see that my white count was like 140,000 when it should have been 10,000. And the lady, the doctor, she was a primary care physician, and she referred me down to Wright-Patterson, which was about 3 hours away in Dayton, to the oncologist there, because I stayed within the military system. And so I drove down there, and he did more tests, and he was able to pretty much confirm that it was CML. And at the time, CML was a terminal diagnosis. He said I had 3 years to live.
Mhm.
And, that was the medium. So, it could have been a little bit more, it could have been a little bit less. And, but that was the 3 years was the normal survival time for someone with CML. And he said, well, the only possible cure is a bone marrow transplant. So, so all this is going through my mind. And, my daughter was 5 years old at the time. And, I was married, and I was thinking about my mom, how I was going to break the news to her. And it was like overwhelming. And I heard this like big noise in the background. It was like boom, 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 boom. Because I was pretty much in shock. And I turned, and I looked on the wall. It was the that old army clock. It was a second hand going boom, boom, boom. And I could like hear what the doctor was saying, but it would come in and out. And it was like time kind of slowed down, and all these thoughts were going through my mind, and I was thinking about my daughter, how old she was going to be in 3 years, and trying to remember what I could remember as an 8-year-old. And I was going to be probably a fuzzy figure to her, so all that was a big concern.
Yeah, that was a big, big, huge concern. Oh my goodness. It kind of puts you and it kind of makes you think like if that were to happen to you, like how you would want to be like talked to and addressed, and like what's like the person who's already receiving the news is like having a whole existential crisis and a whole everything going on, and then they're given a lifeline. You get what I'm saying? Like, can you take us back, like when you decided to say yes to the clinical trial with
Well, that's a long story before we even get that far.
oh,
And
okay. Okay, so what happened after that?
okay, so well, when he told me that, I was in disbelief. So I asked for a second opinion, and
Mhm.
so flew up to Walter Reed Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, and they said the same thing. They said, "Well, it's right. It's 3 years, and you do have this disease." And then I came back home, and I went to a couple of local doctors, and they said the same thing too. So I had to. It was like you got a bad lottery ticket, and sometimes you check your number. 'Cause you got to have like one or two. You got to win $2. You might not win $1 million, but you can't have all bad numbers. But that's what it was, and um, came back that the only possible cure was a bone marrow transplant, and that year it was like very bad. It was like a 1% chance for African Americans to find a match on the registry. I think the year before it was like 20 blacks out of 2,000 blacks who actually found a donor, and the rest of them did not have a good outcome at all. So all that was coming down. My sister did not match. No one in the registry matched me, and so I had to start doing bone marrow drives myself. I contacted the registry, the bone marrow registries, and I said, "Hey, I want to do a drive." And they said, "Well, no one's ever found their own match, so it'd be better for us to do this and for you to take care, keep up with your health because these things are very strenuous." I said, "No, I want to do these," and because I felt there would be more empathy if I was personally out there, and so I started doing that. And I had a very big success. I did drives in churches, malls, and military bases around the country. When I say myself, me, my family, my friends, and other people, strangers also helped in. I was like the face of the drives, my story, and we did very well, and we set world records. Like I helped. Participated in the drive that had like 10,000 people. So it was very successful. My best friend, army buddy, was a match to somebody. He saved a life. So I kept doing those drives, and then I moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, because I had to take a military retirement. I kept doing those drives, And at one of the drives, now we're about a year and a half into my diagnosis, my
Okay.
wife, my wife aunt was putting on drives. I had other people putting on drives for me too.
Okay.
And she
Okay.
did 4 drives. And at her very last drive, this guy, he came to the drive. Name was Mark, and he said, "Hey, he had hairy cell leukemia, and he had went out to M.D. Anderson to try some experimental drugs, and he said it worked for him. He was like, he said he was near death, and he was sitting there. He looked good, and his only reason for coming there was to tell me about clinical trials. And he had
Mhm.
come before I, because I live in Atlanta and this is in Columbus, Georgia. So I drove down to the drive. He had come, but I had not made it there yet. So he had left and came back because he was a busy man. He was a businessman, and he gave me the information to his doctor, and I called his doctor and talked to his doctor. The doctor picked up the phone. First only time he ever did that in like 20 years, but he did that day. And I told him what was going on. He said, "Come on out." And then I went out there. He says, "Hey, I'm going to put you on clinical trial after clinical trial." And that's in fact what we did.
Okay. Now, I just want to take it back to your drives. What was that like? Because I know you said that your family was a part of it. That is just so inspiring to me because I was just thinking of me and my family. We can barely go on a 2-hour drive, like down the street. So to put all of that together is really amazing. Can you tell us a little bit of how you put it together and how you were able like to go and then get your army buddies and everyone together to like this one singular purpose that really was life saving?
Well, it started with one drive. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the first drive is really how I got kicked off the ground because I came back and I told my boss, because on the military bases you have to get the permission of the base commander. So I had to like go up to chain of man and get his permission and his approval. He approved it, and then bone marrow drives were pretty new back then because the first bone like non-related bone marrow drive was like back in the late '80s. They had done drives. I mean, transplants with twins and then transplants with related um, uh, siblings. But for unrelated people, it started in the late '80s, so it's still very new. The list was very small, so it was a new thing. So I had to educate people and tell them what it was all about. They got on board, and Army likes to do things, and like 350 of them stuck out their arm, and they donated blood to see if they could be a donor, and that's how it started. And then it just kind of like snowballed. I was doing like a couple drives a month, uh, and
Wow, that is
sometimes more than that. And I would fly around. I went to like all my old places where I was stationed at. Oh, sorry, this phone's going on. I went to Pennsylvania. I went to Virginia, Fort Bragg. I just go to these places, and I went to like churches, as many churches as I could, and in Detroit and elsewhere. And actually, one of the churches I went to it set the first world record, which was like 5,000, and it took a while for them. It was like their third drive, and I was able to speak with the people of the church on the second drive. Because in the first drive, only like 2 people showed up for 2 little girls who had leukemia, and and this was like the Red Cross. The Red Cross is running this one. I said, well, I want to do a drive there, and the lady said, "You sure you want to do that a drive there? Because only 2 people showed up." I said, "Yeah, I'm just planting seeds." So
mhm.
when I did it, a few hundred people showed up, but it takes time and education. So they set the world record on the third drive.
Yes, just planting seeds and watching them grow. Oh my goodness. And just think of how many people you like are ministering to and like educating all throughout these drives, and it's just like it started out being, for life or death situation for you, and then it's just helping and it spreads so many people, and that's just really truly is amazing. So
Yes.
when they first brought up Gleevec to you, and what was, I know they said we're going to put you through trial after trial after trial, but what, like, your thought process? Because was it like, oh, this is a little bit experimental, or were you already at the point where you were like, okay, yes?
Well, yeah, the trials that I was involved with, they were phase one trials, so they all were kind of like experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor that I saw out there, and the reason I trusted him was because he was the doctor who did the clinical trial for interferon, which was the current standard treatment for CML at that time.
Okay.
He was like the world, renowned doctor for CML. And he said, well, at first he's increased the interferon, and then he did some other combinations of drugs, and they failed. And then I did the clinical trials. So I was at the 3-year mark, and I asked him, I said, are there any more drugs? And he said, we have one drug, it's close, but we have a problem in the lab with the animals in their livers. And if we ever get approval by the FDA to use it in humans, you will be the first person to use it. And his nurse, she was a black nurse, and she said, doctor, you just told the other guy that just left the office that he was going to be the first person. And then the doctor said, oh, okay, well, you'll be the second person. So I went back home, and because I knew it was like it's going to be a pill. They didn't have the name of it yet.
Okay.
And so it wasn't like you're going to be trying Gleevec. It's like, okay, you're going to be trying this new type of drug. It's going to be the world's first targeted drug that's going to be going to the DNA and attacking the specific, protein. And it's going to be the first of its kind.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited about that. But he didn't call me until like 6 or 7 months later. So by that time, I was like very sicker. I was like, I could barely walk around the block. I was very thin. I lost maybe about 40 pounds from 170. So I was probably down to like 130. And he called me and said, come on back out. And I came on back out. And that's when I started the trial. So I was very happy because now I was at 3 years and about 8 months since my diagnosis. So,
All right. And if you don't mind me, what was the trial process like for you?
Okay, so in the consent form, they laid it out that, hey, you're gonna have to come out here and stay for 3 months, and you're gonna have to come back every 90 days for a couple of days for at least. Well, they didn't know how long it's going to last, but it ended up being, for me, 4 years. It was 3 years before the drug was approved, but I did the phase 4 because it was accelerated approval. So it ended up coming out every 90 days for 4 years. So that was kind of costly, but it saved my life. And you say, what was it like? Well, I had to find a place to live, and I had to get set up a house. And back then we didn't have the cell phone, so I had to get a landline. And I had to buy like stuff for the house, like
taking up your life and putting it someplace else.
Yeah, and it was during the school year, so I was out there by myself because my wife stayed back with our daughter. So I was basically out there by myself in Houston. And so, and I had been out there before in similar situations for like other trials and treatments. For example, for a clinical trial I did on pegylated interferon. I stayed out there for 1 month,
Okay.
for 3 months. And of course, it's more expensive when you're doing 1 month or 3 months because the prices are pretty much jacked up because it's hard to find a place.
Okay. And what were your visits, like your patient visits when you would go in? What were those like?
Okay, I would go in like maybe uh, 3 or 4 times a week. First week was almost every day. And the first day they took the blood like maybe 12 times. They would just go down. And I don't know why they didn't use the same part, but they went down my arm like 12 times. And so that was interesting. And then they gave me my medication
Mhm.
and in the bottles, and they gave me a diary to fill out. I had to write down each day, like how I felt, if I felt nauseated or whatever, and from that information they could tell. At first, I didn't know that I needed to take it with food, so I got very nauseated, and then
Mhm.
I figured that out. Um, so it was a learning process. It was a very small sample though, because it was so early in the trial. It was like a very small dose. I started on 85 milligrams. And the normal dose that they found was most effective was 400 milligrams. But it took maybe about 6 months for them to figure out, maybe more, maybe 7, 8 months to figure out that 400 was the right dose. They went up, they kept going up.
Mhm.
Uh, Even after that, like 600, 700, 8, I think they might went to 1,000. Then they came back down and found right dose.
And how was your communication with the team who handled your trial all throughout the process?
Well, my communication was very good because I knew the people there because it was just pretty much the same people that I had seen for the 3 years beforehand.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll go see the doctor, same doctor, and go see the nurse, same nurse. Now, the researcher nurse was somewhat new, but the communication was easy. Um, so there was no such thing as a portal back then, or any type of you did what you did in person. Um, so, but the numbers of people on the trial were not as big because for phase 1, and it was 3 sites too. I like to bring that up because it was at MD Anderson. There was a site at UCLA, and there was a site
Okay.
in Oregon. And the total amount of patients for the whole phase 1 for I think the first year was like 83 people. It might have been even longer than that. Um, it might have been a couple years, but it was 83 people. So that was the total number of people. And for the whole trial, it got up to above 1,000. Because once the results start coming in, that you see those markers, and that you know um, the drug is doing better than the old drug, and
Mhm.
a lot more effective than the old drug. Then you got more people um, wanting to get on that trial because they were dying too. So um,
And when you came towards the tail end, how was that? How was it coming off of it? What was your communication like? If you had any questions, were they like really good with letting you know like results and things of that nature towards the end and after you were done?
okay, so coming off of the trial, basically, you're not really you're off the trial, but I was still going out there every 3 months, even though I'm off of the trial because it's still a new drug. It's working. You don't know how long it's going to work though,
Hmm.
because it's so new. So that's the issue, that dilemma that I had too, because I knew it was good. In fact, I started the trial in August of 1998, and by June of 1999, I had run a 26.2 mile marathon in Anchorage, Alaska. for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So we knew this drug was effective from, going from like being very sick to running America. And so you have more people trying to get the drug. So it wasn't like, okay, we're afraid to try this drug, and during that same time, it's like, okay, it's not like we're trying to protect the patient because the patient wants this drug. In fact, they were petitions set up by patients for the sponsor to increase the production of the drug so that more people could be a part of that life-saving drug.
Your survival really is so powerful all on its own, but everything like you've done and like had to overcome is just as impactful. It really is like amazing. So I want to segue into the next segment. Why do you believe it's so important for Black men or men of color to be represented in clinical trials? I know you talked about it previously, how little it was for even like the bone marrow transplant. But in terms of the clinical trials, why do you think it is so important for them to be represented?
Well, Black men have the lowest, how you say, life expectancy of all groups, except for Native Americans. It's for Black men, it's like 70, 70, right at 70 years. And, then it goes, I think it goes Black women, and then, then Hispanics, and then whites, whatever, and then Asians. But Blacks are right there at 70. And then once we get diagnosed with something, first of all, we're twice as likely to get diagnosed with most of the diseases. Like say multiple myeloma, we're twice as likely to be diagnosed with that, hypertension, all these different illnesses. And once we're diagnosed, we're twice as likely to die from those illnesses. So it's important that for Black men to keep up with their health, to do the preventive things that need to be done, the preventive test, no matter what it is, prostate, colon, or whatever. And it's important for Black men to have access to the latest technology. And the latest is the clinical trial. At least it was for me. If you look at it, how that saved my life is that I was diagnosed in 1995. I started the clinical trial in 1998, but the drug was not approved until another 3 years later. So if I wasn't on the clinical trial, I would have died right there because I would not have been able to get that drug, that life-saving drug. And there were a lot of people dying who could not get that drug because if you look at it, 40,000 people worldwide are diagnosed with CML. And if you only got 1,000 people on the trial, then 39,000 people are not going to fare very well. It's actually more than that, probably 120,000 because that's years. But if you could get access to the latest treatment, at least have that as an option. I'm not saying that you go ahead and do it, but at least you can say, hey, I want to do this. I don't want to do this. You're not going to say, well, I didn't even know about this thing. So it's important for Black men to have access to the latest medical treatments.
And I do have a question from the audience. Mr. Maria said, what has the impact been on increasing the chances of African-American matches?
Okay, so for bone marrow donors. So if you look at that, okay, when I was doing it, it was 1%. And that was 30 years ago. And I kept doing it. And I still do drives. And but right now it's at 29, 30%. So it's only increased like 1% per year. So now if you look at it, out of 2,000 people, maybe 600 people will find a match. 600 African Americans or Blacks will find a donor. So it's a very slow progress. So we still have to be work very hard and to increase that number. And every time a Black person joins, it really thrills my heart. And right now, I believe you have to be under 40 years old to join. Back then, it was under 60 years old to join, but now it's under 40 years to be a donor.
Okay, okay. And Miss Cecilia Mann said, Gleevec working since 1998. Woo, woo. She in the chat room to support. And
Yeah.
I know you talked about that you still do trials and things of that nature.
Yes.
And there is still very much a distrust in communities of color with the pharmaceutical, medical whole as a whole. How do you navigate those conversations?
Okay. So we always have to address the so-called elephant in the room, because
Mhm.
that the Tuskegee experiment and the long history of medical bad treatments. If you read the book, the book Medical Apartheid, and talks about all the different things that went on, like with enslave of individuals. It talked about Mary Sims, who did the experiments on the Black women uh, without any pain medication or anything. And you look at Henrietta Lacks and all the experiments done on prisoners and yeah, and that's sort of nature. Um, but you also have to look at all the things that have been put into place too, all the ethical regulations and like the Nuremberg and Helsinki and Belmont, all those different things, and the continual controls and RBs and a lot of times I think, in my opinion, it really didn't. I didn't think about it because. I think the biggest hurdle to Blacks and minorities in clinical trials is they're not asked to participate.
Mhm.
So once you ask them, you have a very good turnout. You have like 50%. And so that's the biggest hurdle, is the inclusion part. And thinking about them early enough, as soon as you have that hypothesis, that you want to try this new thing, that you start thinking about how you include everyone who may be affected by this drug. And if you look at trials with healthy volunteers, they volunteer at a higher rate. Um, you know, oncology trials, you're not going to find as many because a lot of times they're not told about um, clinical trials, and you don't use healthy volunteers for oncology trials because that would not be ethical. But you do um, need to include everyone, give everyone an equal chance, and everyone have an equal part with the risk and benefits. We don't bear all the burden, but we also get an equal part of the benefits of the trial.
Okay. And in your time of talking to people, have you ever heard any like crazy or like wild misconceptions that you hear about clinical trials? And it's just like, that doesn't even happen.
Yeah, yeah. I hear that all the time, and I'm tolerant of those because that's just part of the conversation. Like um, we have certain things that and even with cancer treatments, like they were saying, well, don't let the air get to the room, don't let them cut you open and all that stuff, or I'll try this diet, or this banana diet or whatever, and just wild things like because a lot of times they have um, science and different types of things confused with what a clinical trial is. They don't understand that. And this is a clinical trial. a clinical trial starts with a hypothesis, ends with a peer-reviewed paper, and you have preclinical trials that you do studies with animals, and you're going to be seeing more than you ever would be seeing on the clinical side. And it's all written out, and you got consent and all this. Because I think like last week, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with, was in a conversation, and it came up about the woman who had to give birth to the baby that was up in, I think, one of the Carolinas. And the conversation was like they were experimenting on her, and that they were like doing a clinical trial on her. And I said, no, that's not a clinical trial.
It wasn't that.
Different. Yes. And then, like, as far as they said, well, you're going to be a guinea pig. No, you're not going to be a guinea pig.
My uncle loves to say that one.
Because, like, for example, in all the trials I've been on, in like these trials, you're going to get at least the standard of care that you would normally get. So, it's going to start with, hey, I think this thing may be better than the standard of care. The equipoise that you have there. I think this is, if not, then you're not going to start the trial. You got to have at least that little doubt that you don't know about. And that's why you're doing the trial, to answer that question. But you're not doing it because I just want to experiment on you. We're going to do it. And we want it to be safe because we're investing a lot of money in this trial. Yeah. So
we're not trying to cancel it.
Right. Yes. We don't want you to get sick on the trial.
Either. We don't want none of that.
Right. Because it doesn't look good for us, and it's going to hurt our trial.
It's good for no one. Okay. Yes. And what would you say has been the biggest life lesson this experience has taught you over the years?
Well, there's all types of life lessons. But the biggest one is for me to hang in there, because at one point I thought it was over. I really did. But hang in there, because you never know what's going to be coming down the road, because that's what research is. You expect something better, and without research, I wouldn't be here. I mean, I always like to say I'm Exhibit A. Because when I go out and talk with people, they can look at me just like I looked at that guy who came to the bone marrow drive, and I can see that he was doing well. People can look at me and say, "Well, he's proved for 30 years that research works." So my biggest lesson is to hang in there and try every option that you can. Go behind every door, explore what's behind there. Don't give up. Just keep trying, and you never know. There might be times when there's nothing there, but you're not going to know that if you don't try. So I just say, give clinical trials a try. Do your research. And perhaps you may, have a miracle also.
Yes. Well said. Well, if anyone has any questions for Mr. Mann, please drop them in the chat right now, and we will be sure to answer it. Before I let you go, this is a new segment that I thought of that I would love to do with you, and it's called our rapid fire round. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. The first thing that pops up into your mind, then you just go ahead and say it, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, what is a quote or a mantra that got you through your clinical trial process and your whole experience?
No weapon formed against me.
Oh, amen. Shall prosper. Okay. Right. And a song that describes your journey.
A song, and I have a lot of songs. He's able. Why I sang. Those types of songs.
Yes, he's able. All right. And just snack during any of your, when you had to take the medication, was the best snack that you had to snack on? Always made you feel right?
The best snack. Well, I hate to say this, but it's probably a candy bar.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with a good old Snickers. Okay. and one word to describe clinical trials.
Miracle.
All right. Amen, amen, amen. All right. We have one question from Maria. She says, how many trials did you participate in prior to Gleevec?
Three, no, two, yes. And then I did some afterwards because I still have to take Gleevec every day. It's a pill. But I did a trial. What was the name of it? It's a combination of Gleevec and Jakavi, and it was to increase my response to see if I could like come off of the drug. But because like 25% of the people come off of the drug, so yeah, hey, if I find the right trial, I might even do another one. So yeah.
Hey, y'all heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Mel, thank you for talking to us, letting me just ask you all types of questions, and more importantly, for showing us what it looks like to fight with faith and with grace and to lead with love and just to live with purpose. And to everyone watching, let this be your reminder that research isn't just data, it is deeply human. All right, Ms. Mel, is there anything that you want to leave the people with where they can
Yeah,
you find you?
Yeah, a few points about clinical trials. Like I said, you're going to get at least the standard of treatment. If you start a trial, you can come off of the trial at any time. It's not like you're signing a contract in blood. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of people think that, hey, if they start a trial and they get off of it, it's going to be held against them. So I would like to add that. We're trying to bring clinical trials closer to people. Like, you don't have to go halfway across the country, but you can like do trials that are closer to home. And that is the goal of many sponsors, is to bring it closer to the patient. So little things like that. Live every day, keep your head up, and just stay strong.
Oh, you have one more. Sorry, Jyoti, I didn't see you slide in there. Did you volunteer for any trial? I think that means like just any kind, or were you looking for specific ones?
I was looking for oncology clinical trials. Now, during the pandemic, there was a vaccine type of trial that they asked me if I wanted to be on, and I participated in that one. And that trial was before the vaccine actually came out, but to see if I had any antibodies to COVID. So I would go in, and then they would test and see if I was exposed to COVID, that type of thing. But as far as it's always a volunteer. Clinical trials are always a volunteer thing. So it's not like you will do this clinical trial. It's like, are there any clinical trials? I want to be on a clinical trial. A lot of folks in my same position who knew about these trials did not want to be on these trials.
Mm-hmm.
And some of
tell you why specifically?
Well, a lot of times they want to see more people. So, and that's another point too, that you can come on these trial in phase 3. It doesn't always have to be in phase 1. It could be phase 2, phase 3. But a lot of people, some people want to see more people on the trial, and that was like on the vaccine trial. A lot of folks, even people who had been on clinical trials, and in fact, I knew a lady who was on a cancer clinical trial, who knew all about clinical trials, and she said, "Well, I want to, before I do this vaccine, I want more people to have taken it." And when I said, well, 50,000 people have already taken it. That's more than you find on any clinical trial. So a lot of times people don't understand how a clinical trial works, as far as the risk and the benefits and things of that nature, and the different stages. Because you wouldn't know that even if you were on a clinical trial, or until you got on that trial, how it all works. Like a lot of patients, they have to read up later about the
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
all this stuff happens beforehand. This is what happens. You got different sites. You got different. You got the AFDA's involved. You got sponsors here. You got sites here. All that different stuff. They would have to like read up on it to understand more about clinical trials. And here's one more thing: caregivers. You have to recognize caregivers because they're very important. And a lot of times, when you have a clinical trial expense, the caregiver also has an expense. So you have to calculate that expense into your treatment if you're going to involve that caregiver.
Yes, the caregivers are. When in my previous job that I was in, I saw a lot of caregivers. They really are a lot of times like extra family members, and they're sometimes closer than family members. So they are the ones who are usually always have the participants' ear and everything of that nature. Last comment, Miss Sharon said, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Mann, that it is so important to have access to the information, even if people don't decide to participate. It is still better that they know about clinical trials. And she's looking forward to meeting you in person someday. Yes, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you, Jyoti. Jyoti has said, thank you, Leah, for this amazing session. Thank you, Mel Mann, for sharing your inspiring journey with us. They are loving you, as they should. And if you guys have been inspired today, take that energy on forward and support a study, support a participant, share this story, share our posts, and even consider joining a trial yourself because someone's future breakthrough might start with your yes. And don't want to leave you all with nothing, but the next Superior event that we have will be our virtual trivia night. Tickets are free 99 and they are on sale right now at our Eventbrite. I will be dropping the post directly right after this. Like I said, July 17th at 6:30. Come hang with us as we go over some clinical trial and pop culture and a few other things on this quick little trivia night. And then Coffees and Conversations is back again in July on the 18th and 25th. I have some good guests in store. Okay. And if you want to talk to Mr. Mel Mann some more, you guys can follow him on LinkedIn. And I believe he has an Instagram as well. But please, please, please,
Yeah,
everything he stands for is really just amazing. Please go and support. Thank you guys.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Yes. Okay.